Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. After weeks of market volatility, the shares of Adani Enterprises rebounded somewhat, bringing a respite to investors. They're trading roughly 1.38% after they fell as much as 35% earlier in the session, hitting a 52-week low. With the slight recovery, the Adani Enterprises have managed to evade the red list of top credit rating agencies. The agencies saw no reason to downgrade the company given its cash flow and assets. Fitch asserted that there is no immediate impact on the ratings of the Adani Group entities. Another agency, Moody's, emphasized that the crisis is likely to blow over in the next 1 or 2 years. But the domino effect after the Hindenburg report has led to chaos at Dalal Street. But should you be worried? Well, let me tell you that LIC has given out a statement that it has invested over 30,000 crore rupees in Adani shares, the current market value of which is over 56,000 crore rupees. So it's not gone kaput as many would like us to believe. It's just that the profit margin has reduced, and that is a point that panic mongers should note. Even the estimated banking exposure to Adani Group from SBI is about 0.975%, including all the banks between State Bank of India, Punjab National Bank and Bank of Baroda, which has 4,000, 7,000 and 21,000. It's money that is seems to be under control from the bank statements, if they have to be believed. Hindenburg report has dented holes in Adani Limited's pockets, though. That cannot be denied. Adani Enterprises has lost over 12,000 crore rupees in just a span of 6 days. That is from January 24th to 30th, the day when the Hindenburg report came out. But how are state-run institutions or regulators responding? Well, SEBI, which investigates stock market fraud and manipulation, is yet to break its silence. The RBI, which regulates and supervises the financial system and banks, has said that the parameters of the banks are healthy, while the finance minister of the country, Nirmala Sitharaman, has assuaged the fears of investors, saying that the exposure of LIC and SBI to Adani Group is within the permissible limit. Excuse me. But of course, the opposition is another story. It's rushing to link the government to Adani. Listen into the charges of the opposition when for a second straight day they did not allow Parliament to function.
Want a discussion on the Adani scam, which has taken over when Adani shares are falling. In that time also their FIO, they had SBI and LIC has pumped the money into the Adanis.
लेकिन अगर ये काम करने के लिए नहीं दे रहे हैं सरकार, तो पार्लियामेंट क्यों बिठाए? यही हमारे विपक्षी सारे पार्टी, इसमें तो कोई अलग राय नहीं है, सारे पार्टी कह रहे हैं कि इस विषय पर अर्जेंट चर्चा होनी चाहिए।
ये देश लूटने की बात है। LIC हो, स्टेट बैंक हो, ये दोनों जो सार्वजनिक उपक्रम है उसको लूटने की बात है। जनता का पैसा है, गरीबों का पैसा है। बाकी वो कंपनी क्या करती है मुझे मालूम नहीं।
If SEBI would have done its job diligently, without being undermined by the current government, we would not have had to face this situation. We're facing this situation because SEBI was caught sleeping, RBI was ignoring.
Stock markets are giving you the reply. Stock markets, they are telling that India's world's second biggest richest bank has come to the scene of 16.
Allegations against Adani is of serious nature. That should be examined threadbare and appropriate action should be taken.
So, ladies and gentlemen, the legitimate question we are asking on the Newshour tonight: the Hindenburg hit hysteria, or is it real? That's the question. And before we go to the debate, I want to introduce former Attorney General of India, Mr. Mukul Rohatgi, who is joining me live on the Newshour tonight. Good evening, Mr. Mukul Rohatgi. Before I even begin to ask you the first question, you're former Attorney General, you're somebody who's represented the largest corporations in this country. Are you an investor in Adani?
Navika, good evening. I am not an investor in Adani. In fact, I have very little investments in the stock market. So it's not as if that, I am speaking for one or the other. But I want to share some thoughts which I had when you called me to come for this show. The first thing which strikes me as disturbing is the larger picture. And the larger picture seems to be the timing of this report a few days before the public issue, and more importantly, 2 weeks after the BBC documentary on the Gujarat riots attacking the Prime Minister. This report also seeks to attack the Indian economy and in a veiled manner to suggest that the government is looking away insofar as Adani Group is concerned. So this timing seems to me to be suspect. There is some larger game which apparently is going on. On some other occasion, I will speak to you about the BBC documentary, because I have been conducting the case of Gujarat riots from 2002 till 2022. I know all facts, all evidence, all police records in Ehsan Jafri's case. And I only wish to say that Mr. Jack Straw has made a mountain of straw.
But when you say that there is a hidden agenda, I want to ask you another question. There are others who say that even if it is a hidden agenda, should that not be made public by the government? Is keeping quiet and not taking any action, not assuaging the fears in the country, a solution to this problem? After all, the stock markets have been bleeding now for 7 straight days. And there is money of common people which is invested there.
Now, Navika, on the micro level, I am no financial analyst, but I feel that this group called the Hindenburg Group, they are only out to make money. So it's not as if that they have some philanthropic or some real genuine concern. They say they are short sellers, which really means they want to sell the stock today at, let's say, 100 rupees. They don't have the stock. They will give delivery after 7 days, when they will ensure that the market falls by these kind of reports. Suppose it falls to 50 rupees. So they will buy at 50 and then deliver the goods at 100. So they are a group of people who have done it in the past. They thrive on this fact that markets are very sensitive. It has a large number of investors. That's what they're doing. So the motive is completely suspect. Now, please tell me, Adani maybe is a big group, but behind Adani, it's not Adani's money. Behind Adani, there are lakhs of investors, including institutional investors. We have a large regulatory framework in this country, much larger than, let's say, the Europe and the US. You have SEBI as the market regulator. You have RBI as a monetary regulator. You have a regulator for airports. You have a regulator for coal mining. You have a regulator for telecom. All kinds of regulators are there. How is it that nobody has raised a finger in this country in regard to these kind of businesses? And suddenly one report comes from a motley group of people who claim to be short sellers, and the whole market goes in a tizzy. I mean, I have heard the statement of the finance minister. That is what for them, that is their field, nothing to do with me. But according to me, instead of saying that Adani seems to have looted the people. It seems to me that Hindenburg is looting the Indian investors and the Indian economy. And since you asked why is the government silent, I would say that SEBI as the market regulator may invite people to come across and make a specific claim in regard to Adani companies, and they can look at it, and therefore the matter can be settled. That's the way it should be done.
But SEBI also hasn't said anything. It hasn't intervened. There is the stock exchanges, the BSE board, the NSE board. Nobody is saying anything. RBI has asked institutions to give a report, but nothing has come out in front. I'm just asking, not answering any questions. That's the charge the opposition is making. And number two, even if it is a conspiracy, does it not add to the fears of common investors and therefore have an adverse impact on markets?
You see, it's obvious markets are very sensitive. I mean, if US sneezes, it has a problem on our market. So I would tend to agree with you to some extent that let SEBI come out and say that they are willing to look at things, let people go to SEBI. But somebody has to make a complaint. There is a group of 5 people or 10 people in the US who are talking about this issue here. Why is not anybody else saying? I mean, if there was some substance, then people would have said something. People would have gone to courts. We have a great and a robust judicial system. Even SEBI has a regulatory mechanism and a legal mechanism. SEBI, and there's an appeal against SEBI's orders to a security appellate tribunal. Nobody has gone. Why is it that people are not going? Somebody should go. I mean, instead of just asking for a demand to treat it as a scam and this, that or the other, why should not somebody analyze it and say, well, there is some substance in all this, and then please answer Mr. SEBI or Mr. RBI. Somebody should do that.
So, Mr. Mukul Rohatgi, you are a senior lawyer, you are a senior counsel to many of these corporate companies, maybe even Adani Group. The question, and you've been a former Attorney General, is the government looking away? Because that's the other question that people say, that between 2014 and now Adani has become so big because there is a direct relationship between the Modi Sarkar and Mr. Adani. How do you respond to that charge?
Navika, let me clear all doubts. I have appeared for the Adani Group. I have appeared against the Adani Group. As the Attorney General, I appeared against the Adani Group. Let me tell you one thing, that this is a complete myth in every field, whether it's ports, airports, mines, production of coal, production of electricity, customs, or any other department for that matter, GST. All cases against Adani ultimately go up to the Supreme Court. They are bitterly fought out. I have never come across a single case in which either the central government or central government authorities or the state government or statutory autonomous corporations have shown that they are willing to look away. I mean, probably Adani as a group would be the largest litigant apart from the government in the Supreme Court, because everything goes up there. I mean, if the government was playing with Mr. Adani's companies with kid gloves, then all litigation would kind of die down at some level. I mean, it is endless what is going on. So to say that the government is looking away, or people keep saying that, you see, the Prime Minister, the Home Minister and Adani are from the same state and they have some covert relationships and all that, is absolute crap. And if you look at the records of the Supreme Court in the last 20 or 15 years, and I can compile it for you to show that hundreds of cases are even currently pending. Adani versus his authorities or authorities versus Adani.
So, Mr. Mukul Rohatgi, where do you think this is going? Do you think, you're saying Hindenburg and the agenda of Hindenburg should be looked at, but it's also a matter of record that they've done about 20 reports. 2 companies have challenged them, and both those cases have been thrown out of US courts. Is it enough to say there is a conspiracy?
Look, I don't know about the US courts or about the strength of those 2 reports, but one thing is clear, that their agenda was only to shake the economy and make personal gains. They are not concerned with any other object. They are not concerned with the fact that there are some wrongdoings. They are only concerned with the fact that they want to make money by short selling. Markets are always sensitive. The moment something happens, and in this country, people are very gullible. They start feeling, oh, it's a report from somewhere in the US. They are short sellers. They must have done something. I mean, according to me, there should be an investigation in the US also. Who is this group? Why are they targeting the Indian economy? Why are they targeting lakhs of investors who have invested their hard-earned money? It's not that Adani is losing money. It's hundreds of investors who are suffering. So let there be an investigation in the US. Mr. Adani can ask the US government, he can go to US courts, can do something there or do something here. SEBI can look at it, and therefore the dust should settle on all this at the earliest. It doesn't augur well for our economy. Let me tell you, at the end of the day, we have to think of some way to insulate the economy and the markets from these kind of wanton attacks. There should be some kind of ring fencing to protect the Indian economy and the Indian investor. That is something very, very important.
What about the opposition parties? I mean, how can you ring fence yourself from them, and isn't their demand legitimate?
I don't think, see, that's what I'm trying to say. Idea is not to politicize the issue. Ultimately, it's lakhs of investors who are suffering. So let somebody come out with some facts and figures and say that, look, either has Adani defaulted in their repayment of loans, has he defaulted in something else, then, there has to be some basis. There is no fire, without some spark somewhere. So just to say that let's have this, let's have that, I don't think it's proper. The best thing is, let SEBI look into this, let somebody go to SEBI, and let's have some facts and figures. Well, I mean, the economy is unnecessarily suffering.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Mukul Rohatgi, because right now there are questions, and of course, it's reached a political crescendo that we are relying more on hysteria that's on not just on social media, but also in Parliament. Thank you very much, Mr. Mukul Rohatgi, for joining me on the News Hour tonight. And as we are asking